CPIM 23-ാം പാർട്ടി കോൺഗ്രസ് കണ്ണൂരിൽ ആരംഭിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നു. ദേശീയ, അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര, സംസ്ഥാന രാഷ്ട്രീയ വിഷയങ്ങളിലൊക്കെ ഒരുപക്ഷെ വിശദമായ ചർച്ചകൾ തന്നെ പാർട്ടി കോൺഗ്രസിൽ നടക്കും. അതേക്കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ CPIM ജനറൽ സെക്രട്ടറി സീതാറാം യെച്ചൂരി തന്നെ നമ്മോടൊപ്പം ചേരുന്നു. സ്വാഗതം ശ്രീ യെച്ചൂരി. Now the time has come for another party congress. In center, Narendra Modi has been in power for 8 years. In this political scenario, what is the role or how important is this party congress?
I think this party congress is very important. I mean, important in the sense that there is a need to work out a decisive line and approach in order to face the challenges that the country and the people are facing. And this is not a singularity of challenge. This is a multifold challenges that are being mounted, where there is a singularity of aim. And that aim is to change the character of the secular democratic Indian Republic and to advance the Hindutva agenda of the fascistic RSS. That is the singular aim. In order to achieve that, they are also mounting, apart from attacks on our constitution, the constitutional order, the independent institutions under the constitution, they are pursuing very visibly aggressive neoliberal economic policies, looting the national assets, privatizing the entire public sector, developing crony capitalism of the highest and the worst order, and creating a corporate communal nexus. And in the process, they are assaulting the democratic rights and civil liberties of the people. And what we are witnessing is growing authoritarianism. And that growing authoritarianism is trampling on the rights of the working people and individual citizens, violating all the guarantees given by the Indian Constitution. So what you see is a multi-pronged attack. So this multi-pronged attack has to be saved, and the singular feature that is allowing this attack to continue and allowing the advancing of the change in the character of the Indian Republic, that is the BJP continuing to remain in power at the center. So the central task to meet these challenges is to remove the BJP from being at the center, in charge of the central government. That is to isolate and defeat the BJP in the coming period. So that will be the singular focus of our party congress. How do we achieve it?
That is the political resolution that party is going to discuss.
The essence of the political resolution, and how we are going to achieve it is the other part of the political discussion on what is required to achieve this objective. There we have outlined very clearly that in today's context, it is the left, particularly the CPIM, that has to shoulder this responsibility in a major way. Most of the other ruling class parties have shown vacillations, and the Congress party, for instance, has shown tremendous vacillations and weaknesses in the recent period, with large-scale defections, etc. So the responsibility to safeguard this secular democratic constitutional republic of India and to advance the interests of the working people, that today lies on the CPIM and the left. Therefore, the main task, the task before us is to strengthen further the independent strength of the CPIM. On that basis, to consolidate the unity of the left forces, and on that basis, to consolidate the unity in struggle of the left and democratic forces on the basis of an alternative program.
What is the situation in West Bengal and Tripura? What are the lessons CPM got from these states?
You see, first one is very clear that this was a targeted attack against the CPIM and the left, both in Bengal and Tripura. In Bengal, the offensive was carried out by the Trinamool Congress, which was then supported very, very ably by the BJP RSS when this whole attack was going on, and they were, in fact, if you recollect, were in a grand coalition. A big grand coalition was there when the lieutenant government was ousted at that point of time. And in Tripura, the focus is actually by the BJP to decimate and eliminate the left. the vicious attacks, the politics of terror and the violence that they generate, his basic target is to decimate the left. But they could not succeed, they will not succeed. But we are facing these challenges, and in fact more than 300 people roughly have been killed by the Trinamool BJP, acting in various ways in Bengal, and currently in Bengal also, the way these developments are taking place, the Birbhum violence, the murder of Anis Khan, and how this politics of terror has become the rule of the game, right, of governance in Bengal. And in Tripura, very indiscriminate attacks against our officers, our properties, our comrades, and all that will be faced, and the more they try to mount and try to eliminate us through terror, that neither the semi-fascist terror of the Congress then in the 70s could succeed in Bengal, neither will this succeed. But it is a very serious challenge.
Assembly elections of 5 states are over. BJP is more and more powerful day by day. There were many issues like price rise, unemployment, COVID, etc. But still they won.
That is the point that we must all realize. The economic problems of the people, their hardships, their day-to-day life miseries, etc., they are on the one hand. But the consciousness and the mindset, which is what I was talking to you about, of creating a overarching Hindutva identity, that supersedes all these problems. Now that is the danger, where what they are doing is actually trying to control the consciousness of the people, their thinking process, their minds, their mindset. And that is the dangerous thing that is happening, because that is a very, very typical trait of fascism.
We are talking about class struggle, but caste and religious fundamentalism is a reality.
It is. It is. I mean, it's not the class struggle doesn't mean diverged from caste and fundamentalism. All these issues of social oppression, of the question of fundamentalism and its grip over the minds of the people, fundamentalism of all varieties and its grips on the minds of the people, are all eventually part of the larger class struggle. That's why, if you remember, when I became the General Secretary, the slogan that was given at the time of our 2015 Party Congress, our 21st Party Congress, was that I said that the class struggle in India stands on 2 feet. One is economic exploitation, the other one is social oppression. Unless both the feet start moving, you cannot walk. So if the class struggle has to advance, both aspects have to go hand in hand or foot in foot, so to speak.
If there is not a level playing field, how can left overcome the situation?
That we must be prepared that there will never be a level playing field, however much we will struggle for it. We will struggle for it, that's the constitutional right, there has to be a level playing field. But the level playing field is continuously being distorted. Look at these electoral bonds. They legalize political corruption and they give a massive money power advantage to the BJP. No level playing field. And look at the control over the media. Look at the amount of space that is devoted to them in the electronic media. There is no level playing field. So neither in terms of money, neither in terms of propaganda, and in terms of misuse of official machinery.
Hijacking mainstream media and journalists.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, that is it. I mean, there are very notable exceptions among the media. I mean, salute to them. I mean, they're at least keeping up the, their role and the freedom of expression concept. But by and large, everything has been reduced to money power, control over everything. Now that is destroying the level playing field. It's a big battle. But then we must be prepared, and we are being prepared, and this Party Congress will help us give directions on how to overcome the limitations of this non-level playing field in order to achieve the objective. If you don't support me, if you oppose me, you're an anti-national. So UAPA, 72% of the UAPA cases in the country have been after Modi became Prime Minister.
Our prestigious universities suffernized by central government. Teachers are now afraid to taking classes about fascism.
That is how that is how they put the pressure to control the minds of the people. And that is what, when I said that overarching Hindutva identity that they're creating, the replacement of rationality by irrationality, and that recourse to obscurantism, backwardness, these sort of issues are which they use, misusing people's faith to achieve their objective. And this is a typical fascist trend.
Now Kashmir become a political laboratory of BJP. 370 gone, divided. Now through a movie, Kashmir Files.
I was there in Kashmir last week for the party state conference, and to have the CPIM state conference in Srinagar in the Lal Chowk, the historical Lal Chowk, was itself quite an achievement with all the sort of enthusiasm. But the people of Kashmir are determined to fight it out. Of course, the Kashmir Files shows only one aspect of the reality. In the Srinagar district, the Srinagar Superintendent of Police has put out official figures of the deaths under militancy since 1990 in a reply to an RTI in December last year. That was dated. And what does it say? 89 Kashmiri Pandits have been killed by this militancy since 1990, and 1,635 people belonging to other faiths, mostly Muslim because of the population, have been killed. So it's not that, you see, the agony of the Kashmiri Pandits, we always, we've understood, we've expressed the solidarity, we've sympathized, we've taken up their cases. I as an MP remember taking up so many of their cases. Even I visited their camps in Jammu where they were, they were moved out. But the fact remains, there's only one side of the story. A big massacre of the Sikhs took place at Chatti Singhpura, the Sikh population, by the militants, but there was no Sikh migration. Why? These are questions that need to be answered. The first person to be killed by the militancy, rising militancy, is a Muslim. He is a National Conference bloc president. Even before the militancy officially took off in 1990, in December 89, our leader, CPIM leader, Muhammad Yusuf Tarigami, was attacked. His father-in-law was killed. He managed to, he escaped by a hair's breadth virtually. After that, he has been attacked twice more. So everybody has been facing this militancy and their attacks. From this, to cull out only one aspect and try to use that for rousing passions and spreading the communal divide, I think that is the greatest disservice they are doing to the country. Militancy has to be fought by Indians as a whole. Any effort to try and divide the Indians will only strengthen the militants.
Hijab controversy had come just before five state election.
Well, I've never understood this entire concept of, you see, what people wear is something that you do not regulate. Do you tell 6 students in schools not to wear the turban? Do you tell our women who would, it's not only hijab, it's not you have in various traditions of the Hindus, different sections. You have what is called the ghungat, you have what is called the choli. You have a lot of ways in which women cover their faces. Now, this has been a tradition as old as a part of our culture. And you go to anywhere in the country, north, south, everywhere. Every community or every identity of social identity, they have their own turbans. Even in the south, what used to be worn by your Trivandrum Raja, the headgear that he used to wear, and what used to be worn by your Tipu Sultan and your Karnataka Raja, all of them had their headgear. That was their identity. How does that become an issue of contention? Unless you deliberately want to make it. It is not the hijab that's the contention. It is the Muslim-Hindu divide.
If we talk about Congress, Congress weakened day by day. What would be the Congress
Well,
future?
that is for them to answer. That is why I said at the outset, what is required for the country today is a further strengthening of the CPIM. Because this is the only consistent force that can take on the challenge of these communal forces. All other parties, as I said in the beginning, all other parties show vacillations. But in that situation, the Congress's weakness today is something that they have to answer.
Mamata Banerjee says, can't trust Congress party.
That is up to her. I mean, I don't know how many are there who can trust her party, Mamata Banerjee's party. How many are there in the country? That also is a question mark.
When we are talking about national alliance, is there any alternative possible just before election?
Before elections, a national alliance never comes about. Always, a national alliance that forms a government comes only after elections. Look at India's history and our own reality. We are a country of so much diversity that it is not every single state has different political parties who have different levels of influence. So a national coalition to emerge before the elections has never happened, never possible. Even when Indira Gandhi was defeated in 77 after emergency, the Janata Party that formed the government was formed after elections. Remember, VP Singh, when he became Prime Minister, the National Front, Left Front, that combination was formed after election. Deva Gowda, when he became Prime Minister, the United Front that made him the Prime Minister, that United Front was formed after election. 98, when Vajpayee became the Prime Minister, the NDA that formed the government, that NDA was forged after election. Manmohan Singh, when he became the Prime Minister, the UPA that formed the government was forged after election. So it's always be after election. Same will happen in 2024. What will happen before election? And that is important. Is state by state, all the secular democratic forces will unite to form state level understandings, like it happened in Tamil Nadu under DMK. And depending on which is the most influential regional player in that state, and under their leadership, or it could be a national party also. In some states, it could be the national party that will be the major force, but it will be state level understandings. And on that basis of that, post-election, the national arrangement will be formed.
Left has initiated farmers' protest at national level, but when it comes to Delhi, it was a political one.
You see, it is not apolitical, but it was a conscious decision to keep the political parties out, because it was not as though it's a political battle between the government and the opposition parties. It was actually the united struggle of peasantry as a whole. Yes, the left took the initiative for 2 years before this entire thing started. In fact, it goes back to 1916, 17, 18, that period, when all these Kisan organizations, some 200 of them had come together to form the National Coordination Committee, and private member bills were moved in the parliament on the similar issues of this struggle, and that was all going on. But once these laws came, a large number of other organizations also came into the protest, and therefore it was then enlarged to be called the Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, with more than 500 organizations. So you can't call that apolitical. That was no political party under whom it is working, which is good, because it reflects the entire unity of the Indian peasantry.
After farmers' protest, Aam Aadmi Party won in Punjab.
Yeah, but that has got nothing to do with the farmers' protest. Aam Aadmi Party won in Punjab because the two traditional parties, that is the Congress and the Akali Dal, the people of Punjab, these were the two major parties there. The people of Punjab lost faith in both of them.
Do you
For
think
various reasons.
Do you think does Aam Aadmi Party replace Congress? What is CPM stand on AAP?
You see, eventually CPM always categorizes parties on the basis of their policies. Now, what is the policies of the Aam Aadmi Party vis-a-vis neoliberalism? What is its policies regarding economic reforms that are being raised? What are its policies regarding the loot of national assets, the privatization of public sector, etc. that is going on? What are its policies regarding the new education policy, which actually tries to replace reason with unreason, rationality with irrationality, what we spoke of? All these things are still unknown. So we'll have to wait and see what it articulates. It's not actually a one-off game, politics. You play, one set of tennis and then you decide which is the winner, and that is not the way politics functions. So eventually, if you have to sustain, you may win one election, that's a different matter. But you want to sustain, you have to be clear on what is your policy direction.
Coming to Kerala, LDF again came to power. Now opposition targeting raising K-Rail project, main issue against LDF government.
What is K-Rail about? That is something that they must also be clear. Now, this is an issue that is under discussion between the state government and the central government. K-Rail is a proposal made by a corporation which has got 49% of the central government, Indian Airlines, Indian Railways, funding, and 51% of the state government. So this is a project for development of Kerala. Now, what is the position we take on all development aspects? One, that environmentally it should be clean, that there should be no environmental damage. Two, the land that is acquired will have to be voluntarily acquired by paying compensation which is many times more than the current commercial value. And three, that it should not lead to any destruction of any traditional activities. Now, if these are the conditions, all these are under study. The survey is going on. That was put a stop to by a High Court, a single bench High Court order. And now the Supreme Court today has actually, I think, cleared that survey to be continued. So let us see all these reports and see the evaluation, then take a proper scientific view on it. Instead of that, the whole opposition aim is to try and find some stick to beat the LDF government. They've tried this in the past, they failed, and this time also they'll fail. Because it has to be based on reason, it has to be based on understanding of what is right, what is wrong. What is the right and what is the wrong of it? That is still under consideration.
So that is CPM stand on K-Rail.
Yes, we are saying that let these surveys be over, let this position be done. It's between centre and the state governments, and let this process proceed. Then we'll know, which is exactly what the Supreme Court also said today.
The criticism is that in Maharashtra, CPM opposing bullet train, but in Kerala promoting K-Rail. That is opposition says it's a double stand.
It's ridiculous opposition. K-Rail is not bullet train. Bullet train is a dedicated corridor which you're created by acquiring land. And how is that land acquisition done? Have they followed any of these principles that we are saying that will be followed in Kerala? Or any of that? That's why no, it was trying to be forcibly acquired. That is what the opposition came from. The opposition came from the Kisans who were being forced to give up their land without discussing with them what is the compensation, what is the terms that you will pay, how much will they be paid. Nothing of that was discussed. So the conditions in which that was going, it is not some sort of a definitional problem. It is what is the real ground situation, how things were happening. And secondly, wrong to compare the bullet train with the K-Rail.
Will party discuss all these issues in party congress?
Well, you see, any state level issue is never discussed in the party congress unless the state brings it to the party or unless it has a national implication. Right now, since the surveys are still going on, what is that implication, national or even for the state, that is still in the process. What is there to discuss? All that we can say is let the survey reports come, tell us what it is. That's about all, no?
Nandi Sri Yechury. CPM പാർട്ടി കോൺഗ്രസിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നതിന് മുൻപ് ദേശീയ രാഷ്ട്രീയ സാഹചര്യങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ചും കേരളയിൽ സംബന്ധിച്ച വിഷയത്തെക്കുറിച്ചും വളരെ വിശദമായി തന്നെയാണ് ശ്രീ സീതാറാം യെച്ചൂരി സംസാരിച്ചത്. നമസ്കാരം.